Throughout time, roller coasters have come and gone. Only some become legends for their intensity and thrills. Each and every year, coaster fans like you venture to the parks, searching for that one special ride that stands out above the rest. You submitted your rankings, and now it's time to reveal the group of elite roller coasters that you have voted as the best of the best. COASTER-net Uncut is proud to present the 2019 Thrilling 32.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the next round of the Thrilling 32 Bracket Challenge. I am Danny Miller from Binghamton, New York, alongside Andy Urbarchek from Chicago, Illinois. Andy, here we are again, week 3 of the Bracket Challenge. And, you kind of said this is kind of like the in-between phase, right? We've knocked out all of the garbage. We've kind of gotten through the exciting part where maybe there's some Cinderellas, but we're not quite at the end yet where we see the final rankings. This is kind of like the purgatory part that some people care about if they're towards the top of the standings, but if you're not, then maybe you don't care about these rounds as much because you don't have the final rankings, you don't see the final results, but you're not really in the contest. You don't really have a shot of winning it. So, this is kind of one of those weird in-between rounds as we get down to our final 4 today here.
Well, and you know what's interesting about it is I feel like there are quite a few people still in it at this point, though, because the first round didn't really knock out a whole lot of fan favorites. The second round knocked out a couple, but it's really going to be this round that I think that it's going to determine a whole lot of people if they're really confident in their bracket or if they start tearing it up. We got a lot of tough matchups here today, matchups that could determine who is champion quite easily. Very difficult decisions. I think after today, we're going to see a whole lot of people no longer in contention for the bracket challenge, and a whole lot of people might be a little bit more satisfied with what they chose, a few weeks back.
Yeah, and that's going to go both ways here because we've got quite a few matchups here that are very, very intriguing, and including a rematch of last year's championship here in the very first region we're going to go over tonight. So shall we jump right in and see who our Final 4 wood and Final 4 steel are tonight?
Yeah.
All right, so let's start off with the old Indiana region, and this is the one we talked about. This is the one everyone's been waiting for, right? Pretty much everyone predicted this right off the bat. It is the rematch of last year's championship. It is El Toro from Six Flags Great Adventure against the Voyage from Holiday World in Santa Claus, Indiana. Andy, the Voyage, the defending champion, never had a repeat champion in either wood or steel. Voyage is looking to become the first, at least on the wood side. There's so many things to talk about here. We've talked about this matchup over and over, year after year after year. It always seems that it comes down at some point to Voyage and El Toro, and this is one of the big debates. This was the big debate in 2006 when these rides opened as to which was the better of the two. And 13 years later, we're still having this debate. Your thoughts?
Well, the two of us, there's no question here. There is no competition. Your competition's a lot more black and white. Mine's a little bit closer. But at the end of the day, for both of us, Voyage is still the better roller coaster. Now the question is that in most of our voters' minds? And that's where it gets real dicey. We've seen El Toro come very, very close, but never make it to the top, correct?
Yeah, I mean, El Toro has always been right there, top 2, 3, 4, has never won it. That's the one thing, El Toro has done a lot of things. It's even beaten the Voyage. The year that Lightning Rod won, Voyage was number 3 and El Toro was number 2. El Toro actually beat Voyage in the semifinals, in the Final 4, and got to the championship, but then lost to Lightning Rod. So we've seen it happen where El Toro has beaten the Voyage before. It's just never won the entire thing. So there's a
Well, we're right there, aren't we? I don't know if there's any more exposition that's going to get you closer to this answer than you just saying it.
Yeah. So Andy, the champion of the old Indiana region and moving on to the Final 4 is the Voyage from Holiday World in Santa Claus, Indiana. So El Toro once again is going to have to deal with not winning it. Now we don't know where it is placed. We will find out. Could be as high as number 2 in theory here. But we will see in a couple weeks where it ended up. But the Voyage is once again moving on to the Final Four. The chances of a repeat still alive for the Voyage, Andy.
It's exciting, and Voyage.
Would you say the biggest threat maybe out of the way here?
Yeah, absolutely. El Toro was a lot of people's picks to win it all. El Toro's always a big pick.
Yes.
I know people are making side wagers on this Voyage.
Yes, they are.
They're making some side wagers on the Discord, and there's going to be some upset people on that Discord.
And I'm looking here, lots of people here in the standings having El Toro as their wood champion. So definitely this hurting a lot of people, as you predicted, because the wood champions were all over the map. Lots of El Toros there, lots of people having their wood champion knocked out. Doesn't knock them out of the contest necessarily, but certainly hurts to have your champion being knocked out prior to the Final Four.
I love the wood champion, especially in this year. So
yeah, definitely. So let's move on to the Rocky Glen region to see who will be taking on the Voyage. It is between Gold Striker from California's Great America and the Phoenix from Knoebels Amusement Resort. 2 rides that I said are my number 2 and 3 on my personal list. So, aside from the Voyage, this is as good as it gets in my on my personal list here. So I'm not going to have a problem with either one of these moving on. Whereas, you're a little bit different here. What are your thoughts on this one here? Phoenix, the golden ticket winner.
That's because you don't know how to rank roller coasters is the main issue there. Because Gold Striker.
You don't know how to rank wood coasters either, so we'll just leave it.
I do know how to rank wood coasters because Phoenix is the far superior ride to Gold Striker. There's zero doubt in my mind that Phoenix is the better roller coaster. Zero doubt in the minds of a lot of people out there. Maybe not you and your cronies, but most sane people think that Phoenix is the far better roller coaster than Gold Striker.
I don't know about the far better roller coaster.
Far better.
No, come on now.
Better. Most sane people think it's far better.
Well, if it's far better than Gold Striker, then I don't want to be sane. And maybe I'm not. So there we go. Anyways, so the champion of the Rocky Glen region and moving on to the Final Four to take on the Voyage in the semifinals is the Phoenix from Knoebels Amusement Resort.
I know how to rank roller coasters.
How about that? The Phoenix moving on to the Final Four. We talked about in the selection show how the Phoenix a lot of times has gone up against some pretty tough matchups. I think Outlaw Run one year, El Toro another year. Phoenix has never really had that year where it made a real deep run, at least in the last couple years. So really nice to see Phoenix move to the Final Four here.
Yeah, it's cool to see Phoenix. We know Phoenix got the nod in the Golden Ticket Awards this year, and it looks like it's picked up some steam in this poll as well. It's almost like a Phoenix renaissance going on.
Well, and you talked about at the very beginning how that Phoenix Mystic Timbers matchup would be key and how most people would have the winner of that one going to their Final Four. And I think most people did have the winner of that one going to the Final Four. So as you said, those first round matchups can prove to be very critical down the road because now really the toughest decision you had to make in the first round, maybe in either bracket, is now having Final Four implications here.
Absolutely.
All right, so we'll have the Voyage versus the Phoenix next week in one semifinal. And let's move on to the Pixieland region where we've got the Cinderella, the PNE Playland Coaster from Vancouver going up against Boulder Dash, the longtime perennial top 5 from Lake Compounds in Bristol, Connecticut. You're starting to wince a little bit over there.
Here's my dilemma. I know Boulder Dash is usually a ride that sometimes does well in this poll. Coaster is one of those rides that moves up, that has been moving up. Boulder Dash, I think, might be the most overrated roller coaster in the world, if you have to ask me. I
think that belongs to Storm Chaser or El Toro.
No, true. Well, Storm Chaser, we can agree on that. Boulder Dash is the second most overrated roller coaster in the world.
All right.
So coaster, though, at P&E, I want to see the Cinderella story move on, but I fear this one. I really do. I feel that Boulder Dash is the longtime favorite. Man, could you imagine if Coaster wins, though? Coaster in the Final Four?
That would certainly be something that not a whole lot of people were looking at here.
No, and I think this was the region that, even though, you know, there's not your traditional Final Four coaster here, there's got to be one. So.
Well, and you said that in the selection show. You said that we said this is the one you looked at, and right away there wasn't one that immediately jumped out at you as the one to go. But I think Boulder Dash was the one that most people were going to look at, considering it's always been the top 4 or 5, and you know, did win the first year. So I mean, a previous champion, you would immediately gravitate towards that one.
Yeah, but here we are again, and whoa.
You sound a little nervous here.
Well, I hate Boulder Dash, and I don't want to talk about it anymore. I've never even been on Coaster, and I want it to win.
What's that?
I've never even been on Coaster, and I want it to win. So
you want to talk about a ride that you haven't been on, which
I would rather talk about one I've never been on than talk about Boulder Dash. So
so winning the Pixieland region and moving on to the Final Four. It's the coaster from P&E Playland. Andy, this may be the first real big upset here in this tournament. I mean, Twisted Timbers over Iron Rattler. I think some people might have called that a mild upset, but the coaster over Boulder Dash is certainly one that not a lot of people saw coming here, Andy.
No, and like you said, I think when you were looking at that initial lineup here in the Pixieland region, I don't think you would have targeted Coaster as being the Final Four ride. And we always say sometimes you got to work backwards, and I just don't see that being that clear of a choice there. Maybe this is one where you have to work forwards and then come to that conclusion. And even then, I think that's a tough choice.
Most people were looking at either Boulder Dash or Prowler to go on to the Final Four here. Both excellent rides, but this year it is the coaster. And the coaster knocked off Prowler and Boulder Dash.
And Prowler never does well in this poll. So,
Prowler has always kind of been Prowler for some reason has soured some of our voters for whatever reason.
I don't know. They're idiots too. They can join your club. So,
well, come on. I like Prowler. It's right outside my top 10. Prowler's a fine ride.
Be in your top 5. What the hell? You have bullshit like Gold Striker in the top 5. That's there's no room for Prowler.
That's right. So the coaster from Vancouver's P&E Playland moving on. Wow. Well deserved, though. I will say, after finally having a chance to ride it, I don't have an issue with that. Real great ride. So finally, let's move on to the Celebration City region, where Andy, we've got the RMC battle. We've got Outlaw Run from Silver Dollar City and Lightning Rod from Dollywood. And Andy, you're wincing again over there. I made a prediction on the selection show here. Some people listened, some people did not. And we're about to find out who should have listened and who should not have.
Well, you know, and I think all the stars are aligned to do exactly what you said they would do. And you said a lot of people, you know, will be ranking Outlaw Run higher this year because of Time Traveler. More people got back out there, maybe fell in love with it. I loved Outlaw Run. I also enjoy Lightning Rod. These are two rides that are right next to each other. To be honest with you, I can't even tell you off the top of my head which one I have ranked higher because they're sitting like almost right next to each other.
I have them right next to each other, and I put Outlaw Run one tick higher. You know, I think
that's how I have it too. Oh, Lightning Rod.
And I think that's exactly it. I mean, we talk about how Silver Dollar City, for a lot of us, is far enough away that you don't go every year. And you maybe don't even go every other year. That's maybe like, for me, that's a once every 3, 4, 5 year part. I went the year Outlaw Run opened, didn't go again until this year. And, you know, I was talking with Drew about this. It's not that I moved Outlaw Run down. It's just over the time riding other rides and riding other rides more consistently, I just moved other rides ahead of it. And then when you finally ride a ride that you haven't ridden in 5 years, when you ride as many rides as, you know, you and I do, when you don't ride a ride for 5 years, it sort of drifts away, and you don't really remember how great it is, and you don't remember all the things that you liked about it. So when you go back to ride it again, you tend to move things up a little bit. And I think, and I predicted that that's what Outlaw Run would see here, and that's why I thought Outlaw Run had a good chance to win here.
Yeah, and and then you add in all the shenanigans that happens with Lightning Rod.
Yeah.
And how many people have tried to go down there and it's not open, it's not working.
Yep.
Well, all those shenanigans leave a bad taste, and I know people shouldn't rank that way, but they do. They do. Like,
and we don't tell people how to do their rankings here. We don't tell people to rank it based on the single best ride you've had. We don't tell people to rank it based off of park operations or, capacity or, however, maintenance issues. We don't tell people if they, we let people rank rides how they want to rank rides. So you don't know if people are considering that type of thing. You don't know if people are taking into account the fact that they waited in a 2-hour line to ride a ride once.
Yeah.
We have no idea. Which is why, again, I made that prediction during the selection show a couple weeks ago.
Well, I'm going to go with you and say Outlaw Run is probably the winner here, because of the reasons you mentioned. Although, once again, I think this is another toss-up.
Yeah, I think this is a coin flip, and you wouldn't be surprised either way. So completing the Wood Final Four as the champion of the Celebration City region is Lightning Rod from Dollywood. Lightning Rod does beat Outlaw Run. So, no Coaster-Damus over here this time around. So your Wood Final Four from the 2018 Ride Warrior Choice Awards, we will have Voyage go up against Phoenix, and Coaster from P&E Playland go up against Lightning Rod. And Andy, not a single person of 135 brackets had a perfect Wood Final Four. We did have some people pick Coaster. There were some people who selected Coaster to go to the Final Four. However, none of those people had the other three right. And lots of people had Voyage, Phoenix, and Lightning Rod, but did not have Coaster. Lots of Boulder Dashes, lots of Prowlers. Not a single person had a perfect Wood Final Four this year. And that's saying something, because we had a lot of 16 for 16s in the first round. We had even more 8 for 8s the second round. No 4 for 4s in this round in the Wood side. What are your thoughts on that?
I think that just goes to show you how tough these later rounds were. Whereas we did have a lot of perfect, brackets, in other rounds. These last few rounds, they were tough. They were tough decisions that had to be made, and I think that just goes to speak that out of 130 plus people, that nobody could get 4 coasters right at the end. I think that's pretty interesting.
Yeah, I think that is. So I
do think now with our Final Four, I think the championship matchup is pretty clear out of this.
Well, and you know what? That's very interesting that you bring that up, because all of a sudden, I think you might be right.
Yeah, I think if you could get, well, obviously no one got to this point, but if you could get to this
no one got this far, but based on the history and based on what we've seen here, I think we are pretty much on a crash course, right, for a Voyage Lightning Rod finals here. Is there anything that would indicate, because I don't think anyone in their right mind thinks that Coaster is beating Lightning Rod here. To give a little preview, I think if you don't think you're going to see Voyage Lightning Rod in the next round, I think you're looking at Phoenix to maybe knock off Voyage. That's the possibility you're looking at, and I don't know if is anyone looking at that? I mean, Phoenix had a rise this year, the repeat champion. Are you looking at the no repeat champions thing and finding that, El Toro didn't knock off Voyage. So now if you're looking at something else to maybe knock off Voyage, I think maybe Lightning Rod's the only one historically that you could look at to maybe do that.
Yeah, the championship to me is clear in this one. So
Well, we will find out next week who will move on, but, congratulations to Voyage, Phoenix, Coaster, and Lightning Rod for making it to the Final Four. We'll see who will advance next week. So let's move on to the Steel Coasters now. Let's go to the Camelot region where we've got Intimidator 305 from King's Dominion and Expedition G-Force from Germany's Holiday Park. Old school Intamin, new school Intamin, a lot of different variables, but when it really boils down, you got two really, really popular Intamin coasters with speed, airtime, directional changes. Two rides that provide a lot of similar things and a lot of similar sensations here in different generations of ride, really, and halfway across the globe from each other, really, when you think about it. So where are you coming down on this one?
Well, I said last week you shouldn't bet against I-305, but I think you really should in this case. I think I think the mystique of I-305, this one's tough.
Andy, I thought about this just a minute or two ago here. We recorded the second round before we heard the news last Friday about Volcano. So this is the first time that we're actually recording a show since the news about Volcano here. And in the Elite Eight, we've got 2 King's Dominion coasters here. So there's a 1 out of 4 chance of you've got 2 50-50 chances for a King's Dominion coaster to move on. We could see 2 King's Dominion coasters in the Final Four here. Would that almost be justification for the Volcano decision?
No, because Twisted Timbers isn't moving on in any sense.
Okay.
So we're talking nonsense here. And I don't even think I-305 is moving on, because Expedition G-Force has been the perennial favorite the last few years with if you look at overall rankings. So I think Expedition G-Force moves on again.
Okay, well, moving on to the Final Four from the Camelot region is Expedition G-Force from Holiday Park. Intimidator 305 goes down, will not make it to the Final Four this year. Expedition G-Force once again going to the Final Four. Germany's favorite, and I haven't said it yet this show, Rob Dole. That's on our itinerary there for the Europe trip coming up in August. So hopefully I'll get to see for myself what Expedition G-Force is all about. But people love that ride, man. It's always there. I don't think that ride's going anywhere anytime soon.
Yeah, I think that's going to be one that with you guys going over there, that's one that's probably going to be a stalwart in this tournament. Maybe it'll drop. I don't know, with a few more opinions in there.
Well, with all the folks that are going on that trip that do vote in this poll that haven't ridden it, it has the potential to maybe go up and maybe win it again, but it also has that potential to, move down. Like we saw that a little bit with them.
If Expedition G-Force ever wins against Steel Vengeance, I'll stop doing this show. So maybe there's more reason to vote that way. I don't know.
Yeah, well, be careful what you wish for there. They might be stuffing the ballot boxes, those folks who don't like us down there in the YouTube comments. Yeah. So anyways, let's move on to the Andy Rubarczyk region. That's the Boardwalk and Baseball region. We've got Fury 325 from Carowinds, the defending champion here, looking to also become a potential repeat champion, the first ever on the same quest that the Voyages over on the Woodside here this year, going up against Helix from Leesburg in Sweden. Helix did very well last year, did very well again this year, but is there really an upset in store here? No. The Boardwalk and Baseball region champion is Fury 325, moving on to the Final Four to take on Expedition G-Force. And right there, we've got our rematch from the last 2 years in the Final Four now. So we've got the previous 2 years, 1-2-1-2, going up against each other in the semifinals here. So, one of the last 2 champions will not be in the championship this year. It might be the champion from 2 years ago. It might be the defending champion in Fury. But they're the last two champions are going head to head here in the semifinals. What are your thoughts on that?
I don't know if this is all semantics, because I don't think this is a contest.
Well, you've been pretty vocal about that from the start here.
Yeah, this if anyone who picked anything other than Steel Vengeance deserves to lose this contest. So. Looking at you, Rob Dole.
Well, speaking of Steel Vengeance, we've got Steel Vengeance coming up here in the Nara Dreamland region. We've got Steel Vengeance from Cedar Point and Twisted Timbers from King's Dominion, the battle of the 2018 Cedar Fair RMC Iron Horses here. Lots of people liked to have this debate for whatever reason, but both great rides.
Their debating skills, maybe.
Both great rides, but in our opinions here, and we've been vocal about our opinions, maybe not a contest here.
No, not at all.
Well, moving on to the Final Four from the Nara Dreamland region is Steel Vengeance from Cedar Point, and maybe a little bit of poetic justice here that the week after the volcano removal announcement, we see both King's Dominion rides in the brackets get dispatched here. So Steel Vengeance moving on to the Final Four, very strong first showing here. It remains to be seen whether or not it's going to go all the way. But
the only matchup that matters is the championship for Steel Vengeance, because that's the only question mark.
And that very well could be. We'll see who it will play in the semifinals here, though, because this is a bit more of a wild card here. And I'll be honest with you, I don't know if either of the coasters that it could potentially face have a chance at knocking it off. Here in the Neverland,
it doesn't matter who wins this matchup.
Neverland,
but it is a very difficult matchup to choose here.
It is for that reason. The Neverland region, we've got Terran from Fantasialand going up against X2 from Six Flags Magic Mountain, which would make its first ever Final Four appearance if it were to win this matchup here. Terran was a Final Four ride last year.
Yeah, it was a Final Four ride last year. X2 kind of had the benefit of an easy route, too, is the problem. So, Goliath in the first round, a ride that I really like, but, isn't super high in our poll. Phantom's Revenge, another mid-card ride. X2 had a pretty easy road here to the Elite Eight. And Tyrone, one that was in the Final Four last year. I see no reason why it shouldn't be there this year. God, I want X2 to win, though.
I do too. So moving on to the Final Four from the Neverland region is Terran from Fantasialand. And as much as that hurts me, it hurts my heart to say that X2 is not moving on here. X2 had a great run. Really would have loved to see it in the Final Four, but it is Terran that is moving on to take on Steel Vengeance. So, Andy, our Final Fours are set. Our Steel Final Four is Expedition G-Force going up against Fury next week, and Steel Vengeance is going up against Terran next week. And as we talked about, the wood is Voyage and Phoenix, and then Coaster and Lightning Rod. Your thoughts on the Steel side of things here before we take a look at the contest stand?
Well, to be honest with you, I feel like the Steel side might be a lot like the Wood side, where it's a two-horse race. I guess it just depends on how much you think, Expedition G-Force can go up against Fury 325. So
It's been done,
but I don't know. I still think it's a two-horse race here.
So you seem pretty adamant that it's a two-horse race in both brackets for the next round here.
Now, did anyone get all Final Four coasters in this one?
Lots.
A lot.
Lots. I don't even want to count.
Many people have arrived at the same conclusion.
Yeah, I don't even want to count. I would say, just ballparking it, I would say out of 135 people, I would say there's probably about 30 or so, 25 or 30 that had all 4 steel coasters correct, and lots of 3s, lots of 3 out of 4s here. So the steel, we talked about this from the go. We said that the steel long term was going to be the easier bracket to select, right up until you got to maybe deciding between a couple for the champion. The wood was going to be challenging all the way, and the scores are certainly indicating that. So let's take a look here. Let's take a look at where a few people are in the standings real quick, and we'll be posting these on thrilling32.com once again. Give it, if you're watching this, give it a few hours after the show drops. We want to give people a chance to view the results before they go and look at the standings, see how they did. It's a little bit more climactic that way, if you will. So the show will be dropping on Saturday when you guys are watching this. So maybe Saturday night, Sunday, maybe even Monday. It depends on how lazy I am in terms of getting you the PDF to put up on the website. But so last year's contest winner, Mackenzie, up to 18th out of 135 with Voyage and Steel Vengeance as the 2 champions. So she's doing pretty well there. Let's look here. Shall we go through? Well, let's look at the Danny Miller family a war here. So let's start with Coaster Crazy Aunt Sue. She is down at, let's see, she's down at 108th with 60 points here. 2 for 2, or 2 for 4 in each of the 2, but has Steel Vengeance as the steel champion, but Phoenix as the wood champion. So if Phoenix were to come out and pull off the upset on the wood side of things, Aunt Sue would actually be in a real good shape to maybe jump pretty high up the standings. So maybe that's what she's hanging her hat on there. Let's see. Now, let's get to the top 10, because the rest of my family is all still sitting pretty in the top 10 here, Andy. So in 10th place right now is my mom. I'm not a coaster rider at all. 85 points, tied with Garrick Gooch. He's told us how to pronounce his name before, and I think we still mess it up. But so that's a tie right there for 9th and 10th place. Derek H. Now, Jarek had El Toro as the wood champion, though. So that's been knocked out. Derek H., 86 points in 8th place, but also at El Toro as the wood champion. Jack Nueve sitting in 7th place. Voyage and Vengeance, he is 86 points. Drew Fisher there with 88 points, but still had Outlaw Run as the wood champion. He fell into maybe, my line of thinking there, picking Outlaw Run as the wood champion. Does have Steel Vengeance as the steel champion. The top 5, but all still have both of their champions in. So Andrew Heller, 89 points in 5th place, has Lightning Rod and Steel Vengeance. Ryan Zurad in 4th place, 89 points. Voyage and Steel Vengeance. Gecko Hunter 2 in 3rd place with Lightning Rod and Steel Vengeance. And then people are going to think this is so fixed. In 2nd place right now is my brother Jackson with 92 points. Gecko Hunter has 91, by the way. Jackson has 92 points with Voyage and Steel Vengeance as the champions. And my dad, Jim, still in first with 95 points, so is 3 points clear. 95 points, 52 overall picks correct. The most number of picks correct, but has Voyage and Expedition G-Force as the champion. So basically, if Voyage and Expedition G-Force win, my dad's going to run away with it, because he's the only person who has that combination there. So if it's Voyage and Expedition G-Force, my dad's going to run away with it. And we could very well know that next week, because if Expedition G-Force beats Fury, then Expedition G-Force will at least be in the finals. And, you still have the possibility of Steel Vengeance over there. Voyage, we'll see if it beats Phoenix, and then you still got Lightning Rod there. So we're not really going to know until the very end who's going to win it. But if Expedition G-Force gets knocked out by Fury next week, then it's probably safe to assume that my dad may not win it because he's going to lose out on not only the championship points, but also the semifinal points. So he's going to miss out doubly there if Fury beats G-Force next week. So that's going to be interesting. And then we've got 2 out of the top 5 with Lightning Rod and Vengeance. So if Lightning Rod goes all the way, it's going to be between Gecko Hunter and Andrew Heller potentially. If it's Voyage and Vengeance, then it's going to come down to some tiebreakers here. There's still a lot of different ways that this can play out. And if something crazy happens, let's say, look at this, Rob Dole sitting there in 26th place, but is the highest ranked person with Fury as the Steel champion. So if Fury were to win the Steel side of things, then Rob Dole might have a chance here based on how some things work out here. So there's still lots and lots of different ways that the contest itself can play out. And obviously lots of different ways that the overall rankings can play out. So
and that's the thing is, like, at this point, there's a lot of variations here, and you don't quite know, who's going to take home the crown.
Yeah, and so still very, very exciting. Next week, we will get down to our championship matchup. Our finalists will narrow it from the final 4 down to the championship matchup next week. Only 2 more weeks left, Andy. We got next week, and then the week after, we'll know our champions, we'll know our number 1 rides, and we will reveal the full listing of the top 50 wood and top 50 steel roller coasters from the 2018 Ride Warrior Choice Awards. And then we're into March, and all of a sudden, the parks are starting to open, the sun's coming out, the snow and ice is melting, and we'll be at the parks here before you know it.
Yeah, absolutely. Like this is soon going to be over. And Danny, soon we're going to know.
Oh boy,
who's on the belt here? Will Fury stay on the belt? Will Voyage stay on the belt? Time is only going to tell here.
They're both still there. They haven't been beaten yet, so they're both still there.
Maybe for only 2 more weeks, though. We don't know. We're going to find out. Here when we reveal ultimately.
Maybe only 1 more week. They could both lose next week.
They could. Yeah, they could. They could. A lot of things could happen, but
a lot of things could happen. Boy, oh boy. Certainly a fun time, and it's certainly fun bringing you the Thrilling 32 each and every year. And doing this here for this month here as we wrap up the off season. Really, we're getting towards the end here.
Absolutely,
which is real nice. So, any final thoughts here before we leave the folks for another week, Andy?
No, none. Thanks for playing, and we're going to find out a whole lot come next week, I think.
Yeah, lots of champions knocked out this week, and we're going to knock even more of them out next week. You can be sure of that.
Absolutely. So, as always, I am Andrew Barczyk from Chicago, Illinois.
I'm Danny Miller from Binghamton, New York.
Right on, Ride Warriors.
Thanks, guys. See you next week.